Excellent. So I guess we left it. I animated the one wheel. So I guess um, what we could do is start the process of the animation of the nose gear. Um, that way we can all get on the same page in that regard. So the first thing, of course, I've got to do, oh, and you can notice, see, I got my cool, funky keystroke thing fired up as well. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, where is that?
A
Oh,
little down lower left corner, all the little.
oh, okay. Yep.
So this we need to do nose wheel edit mode.
How can I hide? No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Okay, keep going.
Taking the cursor to select it. What the heck? Oh, I got more than one selected. How about that? Let's try that again. All right, edit mode. All cursor to selected. That's better. And then I'm going to go back to object mode and object set origin to 3D cursor. Okay. So again, it's the full nose gear. So unfortunately, we have to go through the process of just uh, animating the first. You want to work in animations progressively. So what we're going to do is animate the wheel. Then I'm going to bring in the bracket that holds the wheel to this assembly, which is the piston, and then I will animate the steering part of that relative to the piston, and then finally I'll animate the gear deflection off of that. So it just kind of builds off.
So, do you always want to start at the end of the tree and work
That is
backwards, or is that how you've done it at this point, at least?
that's the way when I watched the videos that Dan put together, he said you had to do it, and so I've just kind of gone with that. Um, I have not, I have tried to do one thing the other way, and it didn't quite work the way I expected. So I didn't really dig into it any further than that. I just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to do it Dan's way from now on.
Yep.
So I know I didn't answer your question, but that's my answer.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
So again, we're gonna just again we've got it. It's normal origin, so we're just gonna start setting the keyframes. So up here, I'm gonna rotate it. I'm gonna just double check because I wanted to say it went backwards. Yeah, it went backwards. So I can just go 90. Set my keyframe. 10
So
here,
this is
minus
the same
180.
process then of the main
Exact
gear.
same process we did with the left gear. Um, and all the things are going to be identical as far as the data refs, other than it's going to be index 0 instead of index. I think we used 1 last time. Wrong button. There we go. That's a good shortcut you taught me last time too, so I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have this thing spinning. All right, good. And this is our nose wheel. We need to set this data ref, and let me pull up that text file somewhere.
And
Don't
then
have it open.
there's a specific data ref for each tire, I think, right?
Yeah, it is. It's because it's a 10. If you recall, it was a 10 index data ref, so 0 through 9.
That's right. Yep.
And it was the tire rotation angle. And if you from the last video or the last session we did, we kind of checked that and we knew the nose gear was 0. Nose gear was 0. The left gear was 2, and the right gear was 1, if I remember correctly. So back to playhead, back to frame 1. We know our value is 0, so we're going to accept it, set the playhead, change this value to 90, accept the keyframe, playhead to 10, set this to 180, accept the frame. Because it would have made sense if I was a true producer. We could have just done it yesterday this way in the first place. 270. Last keyframe is 360, just so we complete the circle and it doesn't try to do anything funky like roll backwards on us. So now as I roll through these, all the data should be hunky-dory and copacetic.
Yep.
All right, so that all looks good. So now what I'm going to do is just cheat a touch because I've already modeled this, and obviously I don't think we need to get into how to model in Blender. There's too many other good videos on it. So what I'm going to do is append the one I already created from the the file I'm using. So the way you do that, just so everybody knows, is you go to File, Append, and then you navigate to another Blender object. So if you actually, there's a lot of good Blender libraries, and it's an amazing amount of how many models are available that are no royalty fee and no attribution. It's just kind of surprised the heck out of me, but they do exist.
What are some of the things that you have seen?
Well, one is the my Manfred, which is my little guy in the triplane. As long as you didn't modify the object, if you made substantial changes, then he wanted attribution. And you also couldn't make your own library and sell it as your own creation. But you didn't have to, as long as you didn't claim it was yours, you didn't have to tell anybody it was his. It's just weird. So where I'm at here, this was the Blender file that I was working on. So I don't know if I kind of clicked through it quick, but I did click on my updated Blender file, and you will see everything comes in different folders, whether it's armatures, cameras, meshes. In this case, I want an object. And I know that I want the gear or nose lower.
Yeah, so I am not seeing, if you're stepping through those things, I'm not seeing that.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's actually in front of me on the screen.
Did you
And I'm
share?
screen
Did you
sharing.
share the screen or an app?
No, I shared the screen. Let me just change the window just to see. Go to screens, screen 2.
Now I see it.
Now I see it.
That was weird. All right. So let me just back up to where I was there before. So what I did was select the file append, which I hope you saw that, right? File append.
Yep.
And then I navigated to the file that I'd already created. And then you'll see a list of folders that have all the different things that you would expect to see inside of a Blender file: collections, images, lights, meshes. In this case, I want objects. And I know that it's my lower nose object. And you'll see it popped in as a as an object, and it's actually showing the actual texture mapping and everything for it. So that is my file, but something's interesting here. Something is interesting relative to the scale, so we're just going to change it.
Yeah, it definitely looks larger.
Yeah. See what happens there. That's very, very strange. I'm at curiosity. Did that one come over that time
It did.
when I moved it? It did?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do.
Try the nose wheel and see if it comes in the same scale.
So that's interesting. Huh.
Wait, are
Alright,
you just in the plane maker landing gear? Is this the new one or the old plane maker landing gear?
this was the this is the one I had modified earlier.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to reappend those and see if it can scale them together. Not quite sure why it did that. Concerned that the scale should be right. Nose piston and gear nose. That was clearly not right. I'll bring in the it was nose lower I needed.
That's really strange.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Here's the other thing I'm gonna wonder, can you look at the dimensions of it in this file of that specific item versus the dimensions in its actual blend file? Maybe it's actually that scale, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that could be an interesting
Did you apply the scale
I did
before?
before I rotated it. I definitely did. Just eyeballing it to be
Yeah.
close. So what's interesting is I guess when I made these wheels, I made them a little smaller. So I'll just cheat. Let's see our wheel nose. We can shut that off. Be interesting to see if this object. How about that? The animation works.
True.
That's helpful. Although the animation for this didn't come through. Oh, maybe. Well, that's okay with. That's okay. That's wrong. I want this object gone. All right, so we've got this object now, right? And we've got our wheel that is spinning. All right. And now we need to get the wheel and the bracket to turn. So we're going to start with bearing nose, and I just want to touch this, move it up just a touch. On the z-axis. And again, I don't want it, it's overlapping a little. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this back. Y-axis. All right, so what I'm going to do is the first thing I need to do is place a new bone. So in object mode, I will add Shift A. That's wrong, that's Shift S. Home keys, Jeff. I'm adding a armature. And I want to hide this so I don't my way. And I want to select that guy. Actually, a pretty good spot for it. All right, why isn't it going to my origin? Am I in edit mode? Yes. That's better. Selection to the cursor. So my bone's lined up. And then I'm going to scale it down just so it's not so obnoxiously large. Oh. Try that again.
And these have to be, this has to be done with bones, or is that the suggested?
It has to be done with the bone if you're doing more than one part. That I can confirm.
Okay.
So because I'm animating the wheel and this assembly together, it has to be a bone. So I am now going to parent these, and the way you do that is you select them in any order so long as the bone is last. So the bone is last, and is it Shift P? No. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I
because
forgot how to parent.
it's the different color orange. Yep.
I'm not sure I made the parent. And also, I want this in this collection. It might be Alt P. I can't remember what the keystroke was.
To set a parent.
There it was. Yeah, that's not Alt P.
Control P?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
That was just a random guess. What is the bone for? Is that to make a whole set move?
It's going to make the whole set move, right? So now if I select this bone and rotate it, everything's going to rotate with it. So I'm going to rotate on the Z-axis.
Okay.
So now you're seeing it by rotating that bone, the wheel and the lower bracket rotate with it.
I see what you're saying. So
Okay.
basically, by doing that, you don't have to have double data refs on each individual object.
Correct. And plus, you're going to find that if you try that, it doesn't work anyway.
Okay.
And then
So
furthermore, I also want these to move up and down.
Gotcha.
And that becomes a separate issue. Although I can actually parent this bone to that nose fairing. I can parent to this object, that bone, and then it will move with that object, which we'll talk about in a second.
So that's probably like what I would have to do with like the yoke on a mall, wouldn't I? So because I got to have it to where it'll go forward and back and roll. So I would have to build a bone to that object.
Well, yokes are weird because they have like a hierarchical rotation thing. So
yeah, so the turn, you're gonna have to turn.
So like the
get
pitch,
the turn of the wheel first, right?
Yeah, the pitch thing becomes the parent, right? So if you push the yoke forward or pull it back at any range through that motion, you can still rotate it left and right. So that animation is sort of parented per se.
Okay, so
in a hierarchical fashion. Do you understand that, Josh?
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that the pitching motion of it going forward and back has to be the higher order data ref than the rolling motion, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Jeffrey, before you keep going here, let me just interject this because I animated the manipulators in a similar fashion.
Right.
But instead of using the bones or the armatures, I used an empty.
Oh, okay.
And I parented the object, like for instance the wheel and the bracket. I parented them to an empty, and then the empty had the animation on it. So I'm curious.
Okay.
You might not know the answer, but I'm just kind of curious. Like, does it have to be an armature / bone, or
I,
can it be
I
an
don't know.
empty, or you know?
I don't know. But I also, if I'm not mistaken, let's see something here. I'm in object mode now, right? Okay, so yeah, okay, so somebody had said that I thought I had heard that they don't have empties, but never mind. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I haven't tried it. We could certainly do that. So I don't know if I can delete this without deleting everything. So do, and I accidentally deleted the parenting before. So clear parents. Let's check that. Okay, good. We'll delete that. I will add shift A this time and empty. What do you do? What do you normally do? Arrows?
Plain axis, but it could be any. It's just a visual representation of a nothing,
Yeah.
right? Same thing as the bone.
All right. So then I'm going to select that. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select the empty and Control P to the object. And if I'm very lucky, so that looks like it's fine.
Interesting.
Well, that's good. So no reason to use a bone.
Well, maybe or maybe not. I don't know. It's just keep going. Let's see if it'll work with an empty. I'm just kind
Yeah.
of curious.
So I'm going to rotate this. Well, I could do that before. So I just got to make sure I got the right. So z-axis rotation. So it's -90. So -90 in the z. And I'm going to create my rotation keyframe. And again, just because I like to have intermittent steps so I don't get surprised later, I'm going to create a mid step at 0. And then over to my final keyframe and my final rotation. So now I've got those rotating across. I've got those rotating from -90 to 90.
Cool.
All right. And now this empty, I'm going to add the data ref. And that data ref is not propagation angle. I think I didn't save it. So let's save this file. I'm going to open the other one just so I can cheat. Tire steer actual. So I want to quit. I just quit. So instead of animating the bone, we're animating that empty object. Tire steer actual 0 because it's the nose. And I think we'll go with, oh, and I had written down left.
Left was like +90 and right's -90, I think.
Well, we could check it quick with
Just turn something.
yeah, well, it's not fired up.
Start engines running.
I probably could. I don't know. Well, I think I can turn the nose gear in a Cessna without the engines running.
Look at that hot pink instrument panel. You went crazy.
Oh yeah, you didn't even see it? Yeah.
I haven't seen the inside. No, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Got the flowers going and everything. All right. So that's full left rudder. So plug in data ref, cool view data ref. That was tire rotation, right? Or no, tire
You might be able to
steering.
just paste that back in there if it's still got it.
Tire steer actual degrees is what I used. So left is negative. Left is negative and right was positive.
Which that lines up with like the airplane axes and all of that.
Right. So it's exactly opposite. So this would be right was positive. So this is going to be our 90 degree keyframe. This is going to be our 0 degree keyframe.
Hey, Steve, welcome.
This is going to be our negative 90 degree keyframe. Hello. So now I should be bloop and bloop. So that's working right.
So any particular reason why you go all the way to 90?
Well, the only reason I did it for this gear is because it's a non-steerable free pivoting gear. So I know that it does turn to 90 degrees a lot, which is also why it's pain in the ass to taxi.
Fair enough.
All right. So now we've got the shaft that we're going to parent that empty to. So I need to go to the empty first and then select this. So now I've got those two together. And Control P to parent the object. And now I should be able to grab on the Z axis and move everything. Right?
Nice.
So this is, again, luckily I had been paying attention to Dan's videos as well, and also I had checked the gear deflection, and the kind of the max gear deflection I was getting, running it through its pace was about 0.1 meters. And we should probably just go back and see what the name of that data ref is. I think it's gear deflection.
So like in my case with the maul, what I would do is basically take the yoke itself, parent to a empty to make that for the roll portion, and then I could parent the yoke shaft itself to the empty to make the pitching motion.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was wondering how I was going to do that because I know you can only do one data ref per each.
That's clearly not it.
That's not POSCON one.
Oh, okay. Thank you. What was that called? Say deflection. Gear vertical deflection in meters. That's the one. So if I rev up, you can see it's even with the brakes on. You can see it going up and down.
Yep.
So, and it's like 0 to 0.1, at least in the other aircraft. So we're going to go with that. Gear. I think I had it before, didn't I? All right. I'm not going to leave that running in the background.
Pause. P.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Why not? So we had a data ref on this guy. That's the correct object. Yeah. And the data ref in meters, and that is index 0 because it is the nose gear.
And you can't put any more stuff in there because it's not animated yet.
Oh, hey, maybe I'll animate it first. That's a good idea.
See where it says object not animated?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
All right, so this is a location animation, and we only really need 2 keyframes. And this one we are going to grab in the z-axis and basically just add 0.1 to this. 0.1 meters is, yeah, that's it. So I'll add another keyframe in location. So now as I,
So at
probably,
keyframe 1, that's fully extended, and then keyframe 10.
yeah, you know what? I'm thinking that might not work for us. Just, it might, but yeah, I think so. So the value at 0 is 0, or 1 is 0, and at the full height is a gear deflection of positive 0.1 meters. So, because it'll stay at 0.1 if I go past it.
And this is probably true because I think X-Plane figures out, like once you set these parameters, I think X-Plane calculates all the animation stuff. But there's no reason to keep your keyframes synced up. Like in other words, on your rotation of the empty, right? Like pick the empty. Pick one of the empty axes. Yeah, so that goes up to 20.
Right.
Frame number 20, right? And then the up and down shaft only goes to 10. So I don't think that those have to be.
And I don't think so either, but I don't know that for a fact.
Okay.
I don't know for a fact yet.
I don't think it would be that much of an issue. Maybe more. I think a real big deal would be just more keyframes for when you're having to animate something that's really complicated. Like if it was a really complicated Piper yoke movement, since when you get near the back of it, it pitches up, it pulls, it tilts, pitches, and comes up as it's coming back near the end of it. Maybe something like that. But in that case, I don't think it's that necessary.
But yeah, I think I think they're calculated independently. I mean, I know they work together. They work together at the same time in Blender, but they're calculated independently in the sim.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, and then again, this is, now we're actually caught up to where I am. I'm going to save this anyway. Well, I mean, we're essentially caught up with where I am on the new file.
So is the nose gear at this point then done?
The nose gear is done, yeah, because that's basically where I'm at here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just did it. You just did it with a bone instead of an empty.
Correct. But it's good. It's good to know it's an empty because it's a little bit easier to visualize what's going on with the empty. So
without screwing you up, could you export the empty version to see if it works in the sim?
Yeah. That's interesting. So it doesn't. The other Blender would open to essentially 2 instances, and this one is not. Blender 2.82 does not do that. Okay. So we will, I'm sorry, scenes. I don't have textures set yet, do I? So that wheel is going to, so I need to set this.
Oh, you don't have any the texture mapping.
The textures mapped. I don't have the textures map set up, but we can do that quick, and it's probably quicker with your help. Material.
Just material. There you
go. All right, so this is the part that I always have to kind of think about. So what I'm doing, okay, so I accidentally stumbled onto it. So you need to go to use nodes. You can pick any material it's attached to. Well, yeah. So I've only got one material in this file, and everything is attached to that material. So that should be material 1, that's material 1, that's material 1, that's material 1, that's material 1.
Yeah.
So I'm using nodes, I'm using nodes, and you go to base color and click this little circle next to it and go to image texture. And I'm going to open the image texture, which I happen to know is fuse.png, and you'll see that it quickly textured everything. And if I wanted to see how that worked, I can go to, this is my UV editor, and open that same file. And then if I click on any of these and go to edit mode,
And select all.
or all, yeah, you'll see how it popped up the,
Yep, there it is.
yeah, and then edit mode, all. Yeah, you can see that's the strut. There's not much to that. Yeah, they map the struts on top of each other.
So have you
And
done
that's where that,
normal maps yet with this, with
no,
2.8?
I have not. I have not done normals and baked them yet, no. So everything's mapped and we're good to go that way. So if I go to object material preview, we can see it's set up now. So now I should be able to export this without errors. I'm not going to bother with that. Exportable collection. And we're going to just call this gear, push gear 2. And the texture is fuse. So I think I'm good to go there. And I will export. And I did not get an error, so that's good news, although I should probably save first. If you got an error, it would pop up, and then I can hit it. You can look up the error with the text file. So like if I deleted this, I think that might do it. All right, that's probably already got it hooked up.
Just put
All right, so
inverter texture.
So we've created in Bush, I've got Bush Gear 2 object that I now need to move over to the aircraft file in X-plane. Maybe 400 objects. You can actually see I've got a Gear Bush object. So this one's going to be called Gear Bush 2. So now I can go to Plane Maker. Hello, Plane Maker. Come in, please.
I thought that there was like a message or something in the taskbar.
There's a problem with OpenGL, is what it said on a different screen.
Okay.
And this, I think we created we'll use the Bush 1.1. And I'm going to look at miscellaneous objects. And I don't want their gear. So I'm going to, this was the original gear that it came with X-plane. So I'm going to delete that. And we can see that gear went away. And I'm going to add.
That plane honestly looks good with no gear. It should have been a retract plane.
And then I'm going to add under objects. push gear 2. So that looks goofy.
So the texture didn't
that's
stick
animating.
if you re-exported it, right?
Or maybe I re-exported it without the texture map to it. As that, yeah, okay. But the other goofy thing is these wheels. Oh, guess what's going on here? So
That's
if
the
you see
texture.
this, it's not the texture.
Oh, really?
This is all the normals are flipped on the wheels because I'm actually seeing through the wheel to the backside, and you get these goofy things. So I'd forgotten I had done that. So that's why the front's working, but you can see the nose and everything. This nose cowl is see-through. So that's letting you know that the normals are reversed. But that animation looks like it's working properly. So another little tip, by the way, Josh, if you're looking at this, if you see the animations doing what you expect it to do in PlaneMaker and then load it into a sim and the animations don't work anymore, that is an indication that you've got the data refs wrong.
Okay.
You basically just got a data ref. Yeah, all the normals are backwards. So but we're going to save this anyway. And we're going to bring it into the sim.
So PlaneMaker is just showing that it's animating against some data ref, not necessarily the one that you specifically want. Is that sort of your point, Jeffrey?
Yes, it's animating against it's basically sending values to every data ref it can find, including any that you made up, because PlaneMaker has no idea whether you have custom programming. So if it's animated properly, it shows the animation, but it won't show any kind of linkage for that reason, because it has really no way of knowing what data refs are going to be available to it in the sim. So it lets it animate, but when you get into the sim and it doesn't work, it's definitely going to be a data ref issue. So now I should have a couple Columbia 400s, and I think this is my bad one. This is going to say, this is one. So this is it.
So I see you've got a Skyhawk RG in there?
That's the secret project, Josh.
Oh.
I'm working on it. I don't have an outside view map. So there's my pretty.
There you go.
Probably should have run it. Let's just do it with engines running quick.
And then the normals are backwards on the rear tires, but otherwise.
And the strut, all of the strut is also backwards normal.
Control Shift E should get you started also.
Will it?
Yep.
We're gonna look like it.
You're still paused.
Oh well, hey.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
There you go.
All right, so I want to look on the outside. Okay.
Yeah, Shift 4 does your circle view.
Shift what?
Shift 4 does circle view.
Well, I can tell right now we've got good things happening because that nose is kind of sitting here free spinning on us.
That's good.
And if I power up without taking the brakes off, you can see the gear retention is working.
Yep.
So and you can see that the wheel is kind of spinning. So that tells us that everything we did there worked. So that's cool. So I'm going to be empties from now on.
So
cool. So
what is the just a quick question, in PlaneMaker, is there a way to set like the amount of damping in the suspension?
There is.
Okay.
Yes, there is. Not that I've ever played with it.
That's something I'll be playing with the maul actually is I'm going to soften the suspension up to make it more like Alaska shock because it's so
This
stiff.
is the one that's broken. Sorry. Picked the wrong instance of plane maker, clearly. So in and I've seen it before. You can play with. I know you can play with strut compression. Gear retraction and nose wheel steering this top section here. So this is where you would set your spring force and braking power. But I wouldn't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how to set these and make anything happen with them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, but that's where you would start playing with all those.
Yeah, that tail of spring force is actually something
That's
I've
this
been
tail
messing with.
wheel, right?
I've been messing with that a little bit on like the carbon cub and the maul because that basically simulates having a springed tail wheel, and you could set for light springs, heavy springs, or however you
Oh,
want
this
it.
is retraction. This is not This is not gear
constant?
deflection. This is not that. This is where
I think it's under gear constants.
yeah, manual gear deflections. I'm sorry. So that's where you would do it. You can set manual gear deflections.
Oh, okay, nice.
But the game, the sim does it for, does a lot of it for you. So,
Okay.
but if you needed to tweak it for whatever reason, that's where you do it.
Very good.
So this is, and what I should have done earlier, before I did, because the whole reason I started doing this was to fix this little gear deflection problem here on the back wheels. What I probably could have done in the first place to save myself a little bit of time is to analyze the original model. So this shows me with full deflection, it's actually slightly above parallel.
Yes.
I can never get the roll right. So like, I want to say like where the wheels are like dead flat is kind of where my cursor is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it goes like
Yeah.
5 degrees or so higher than that.
Yeah, right. So if I had looked at that first, it probably would have helped me set it better in the first place. Because as you can see from mine, I'm actually basically full
You're almost
down
exactly
deflection was
opposite of it.
right. So that's what I did. That's what I did backwards. So, I mean, at this point, that's what I was going to start working on. So, but we've already been at it for an hour, so I don't see any reason we can do it next time. But at least we're caught up to where this model is now.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Because we're essentially caught up to this now, this guy, and that's where my broken deflection is. That we'll fix at the next session.
Okay, perfect.
Ooh.
All right. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you being willing to share again. So it's and as I dive into more of the panel business, hopefully I might have something to share there.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right.